Today we're going to be talking about The Strength of the Few, which is the second book in the Hierarchy series and the sequel to The Will of the Many. Just right up front, I do want to say there is definitely going to be spoilers for The Will of the Many, because you can't really talk about The Strength of the Few without having spoilers to The Will of the Many. So if you have not started your Hierarchy journey yet, here's where you stop and back out, unless you just love spoilers, and then I guess feel free to keep going. To start, I 100% agree with the Brothers Gwyn when they said this is the most ambitious fantasy novel they've ever read. And to completely understand why, we have to refresh ourselves on what happened at the end of The Will of the Many. So, after running the labyrinth during the Eutychium, Viz replicated himself into 3 different realms. The main realm, the one we were in for the entire part of The Will of the Many, is called Res. And then there's also Obitium and Ludicium. And what makes this novel the most ambitious one that I've read fantasy-wise is this book simultaneously gives us a Norse-inspired fantasy novel, a Roman-inspired sci-fi and fantasy novel, and a dystopian novel at the same time. We get a story reminiscent of The Shadow of the Gods, with its superstition, its aloof gods, and its family warband vibes, while simultaneously getting a story similar to Mockingjay in its dystopian nature with its capital and its need to infiltrate the capital, while also having, obviously, a story like The Will of the Many, seeing as how this is the sequel to it. James Isington executes them all incredibly well. I think he does a fantastic job because not only are they all interesting and fascinating and bring new side characters that are lovable and intriguing to the story, they also all move the plot along in a different way, and they all answer questions from The Will of the Many and then pose new questions. And as we read further and further along, you see how all of them kind of start to weave together to prompt even bigger questions that can't really be answered at this point in time. Also, something I wasn't really expecting is kind of that academia vibe, which we got from the first book. We get a little bit of that in the various storylines, so if you like that sort of vibe, you get a little bit more of that here. One thing I think James Isington did better in The Strength of the Few as compared to The Will of the Many is he made the middle far more memorable. When The Strength of the Few was coming out, I was needing a refresher on basically what happened in the middle of the book. I remember the beginning of the book and the theater and how will works, the hierarchy, and then I kind of don't remember the rest until the Eutychium and then obviously the ending. There was just a gap in my memory for the middle portion of the book, and as I watched videos to refresh myself, it was pretty apparent I wasn't alone. But when the third book comes out, I don't think we're going to have that issue with The Strength of the Few. He made it all very memorable, and I think the fact that there's the 3 different storylines helps with that tremendously. One of the ways it built on The Will of the Many is its deeper exploration into the ancient technology that no one fully understands. We got a bit of that in The Will of the Many when Viz was on Solavagus and he explored the ruins, but it really takes center stage here in The Strength of the Few. This adds a very mysterious element to an otherwise hard and tight magic system. The mathematical precision of will and seeding, mixed with the mysterious element of how the heck does this even work, adds an almost mythological feel, which I love in books. It's very reminiscent of The Name of the Wind. I was talking with one of my friends the month before, and he helped me realize one of the aspects I love about The Name of the Wind is the fact that it's a mixture of a hard and a soft magic system. Sympathy in The Name of the Wind is a very hard and tight magic system. It's precise and it's technical. But then you have the mysterious element of the names. And how do those even work? Weaving hard and soft magic systems together leaves an element of mystery in an otherwise very technical world, which for me just adds a whole nother layer to the world building and the story itself. Also, the fact that the mystery isn't just with the magic system, but also with the ancient technology and these sort of magical items, reminds me of 2 other book series that I thoroughly enjoyed as well. One being the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin, and how they lived amongst the ancient technology and just tried to use it to their benefit as best they could. And then also the Stormlight Archives with its fabrials and its shard plate and its shard blades. That sort of ancient technology that feels mythical because you don't fully understand it is an element I love in books. And if that's something you enjoy, The Strength of the Few has that in spades. Something else that I love is that James Isington pulls from our real world to inspire not only the book, obviously ancient Rome, but also the ancient technology. He looked at ancient Rome and said, what civilization would be mysterious and ancient to the Romans? And if you're like me and you didn't realize it in The Will of the Many, it's ancient Egypt. The ancient technology that the Republic and our characters navigate, explore, and discover in both The Will of the Many and The Strength of the Few is very clearly inspired by ancient Egypt, and that's even more apparent in The Strength of the Few than it was in The Will of the Many. So if you're someone like me who's fascinated by not only ancient Roman history, but also ancient Egyptian history, this book is the perfect combination, and it works so naturally. All of this, combined with the fact that it paid off that crazy cliffhanger of an ending at the end of The Will of the Many so well. How many questions I had from The Will of the Many that this book answered, as well as the slew of questions that The Strength of the Few prompts itself, is what makes this book a fantastic sequel. It's not a stagnant sequel. It's not a bridge book that's just there dumping lore and setting up the third book. It's a book that stands well on its own and will leave you satisfied. Granted, you'll still have a lot of questions and you'll still want the third book immediately, but that's the kind of frustration you want from a sequel. With that being said, there are a few things about The Strength of the Few that I didn't fully enjoy, but they're pretty much the same things that were in The Will of the Many that I didn't fully enjoy. And the main one, the glaring one, is Viz is just incredibly good at everything. Now, there is the whole, I was trained in Seuss and I was a prince, and so I've got the best training ever possible, but it doesn't fill the gaps for the fact that he's better than everybody, especially at the things that are native to their culture and not his culture, yet he's still better than them at it. But the thing that kind of annoys me the most is how wildly off the charts his EQ is. He is just able to perfectly read everybody and every emotion and exactly what everybody's thinking and play them mentally and psychologically perfectly. And that gets a little old for me. There were a few times in this book where it backfired. And I absolutely love that because it made him feel like more of a real person. There are two more elements in this book that I didn't really like, and they very much remind me of a magician's card trick. When I was a kid, I had this one card trick that wowed all of my friends. And really all it is forcing them to pick a card that I want them to pick. And there's two elements that just feel like a magician's card trick to me in this book. And what's really cool about magician card tricks are when you don't understand them, the magic and the charm are so real and so vivid and so fun. But as soon as you know the secret, it kind of loses its flair. And one of the big things for me is the same thing in The Will of the Many, where Viz's EQ is off the charts for everyone except Verdius. For some reason, Verdius is the most mysterious, enigmatic person ever in Viz's mind, and he's just fully incapable of picking up even one hint about what Verdius is thinking and feeling. How does that make sense when you read everybody else so well, especially the first time you meet them? So that felt like James Islington forcing that to be able to move the plot along in a specific way. Not my favorite thing. Another thing that felt a little forced in this book, I can't go into too many details because it would give away spoilers, but it happens towards the end of the book. And I'll just say, and this won't be enough, so if you haven't read it, it's not spoily. If you have read it, it should be enough for you to understand what I'm talking about. But if you want a character to have an injury, give them an injury. If you don't want them to have an injury, don't give them the injury. And if it annoyed you, you'll understand. If it didn't, great. I'm glad it didn't annoy you. You'll be perfectly fine. To help explain why that sort of thing annoys me, there was this book series I read one time, and the author said in an interview one time, man, I really wish my characters had been able to go to XYZ city because I had built so much cool stuff there. I wish they had the opportunity to go there. But the reason he said they didn't go there is because their decisions and the direction they decided to go as characters didn't fit them going to that city anymore, and so he didn't force them to go there. And I love that about those books. It felt incredibly natural. There are a few things, like him not being able to read Verdius, that feel forced. Overall, if you liked the first book, you're going to love the second book. I personally loved the first book, and I like this book even more. Now, those elements that annoyed me from the first book that also are in this book, I just kind of went in with the mindset of every book has a little bit of suspension of disbelief that you have to lean into. That's the aspect for this book. So for me, I'm okay with those elements, even though they annoy me a little bit. This is a fantastic sequel that does everything a sequel should do. It answered the questions from the first book and specifically pay off that crazy ending from The Will of the Many, because without making that ending worth it, you'd have a bad taste in your mouth about the first book and the second book. And you don't have that with this. Pose new questions for you to think about, have a fantastic ending in its own right, and make you want to read another book without feeling like a bridge book. It is its own story. It moves the plot forward. It does not stay stagnant. And it does so in 3 different and unique ways that you see slowly tying together in a very satisfying way. And the way James Islington handled this sequel makes me fully confident he will give us a very satisfying conclusion to this story. Now, whether that's in 3, 4, or 5 books is a whole nother question. I don't actually know how many books it's going to be, but I'm along for the ride and I'm ready for it. Where does The Strength of the Few sit on your TBR? Have you already started it? Have you already finished it? Or are you planning on reading it soon? Let me know down in the comments below if you have finished it. Let me know what you thought of it. I know it's got some hate, and I haven't actually listened to any other reviews, so I wouldn't be influenced by them before I made this, but I'm probably going to go listen to some to see what aspects people didn't like about it, because I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope you do too. That's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps out the channel, and I'm excited to share my love of books with you in the future. So until then, I'll see you in the next one.